Hello, my name is Yessica Holguin. Welcome to The Wealth We Build, a show that uplifts the voices of community leaders, entrepreneurs, organizers, and institutional champions who are taking bold collective action to close the wealth gap. At a time when so many feel isolated or uncertain, this show is a powerful reminder that the change is possible when we move together with a shared purpose. We not only have the power to shape our economic future, we have the responsibility to build systems rooted in community ownership, dignity, and shared prosperity for generations to come. Today, we're going to talk about one of the key facets of community wealth, cooperatives. And today I'm joined by Michaela Holmes and Joel Newton. Thank you so much for being here today. Really excited to talk about cooperatives. So let's dig in. Tell me first, before we start talking about cooperatives, what does community wealth mean to you?
Yeah, for me personally and for the Center for Community Wealth, we think of it as an inclusive economy that works for all. As part of the worker co-op aspect, I think dignity is a really important part of that and the ability for each person and family to have their needs met.
Great. Thank you. So Joel, what is a co-op or a cooperative?
Yeah, so worker cooperative is really any kind of business where workers share power and they share the profit. So they're really involved in everything that happens in a business versus kind of what we're normally aware of, like a corporation where there's a boss. In a worker cooperative, everybody shares in that power, decision-making, and the profit.
So decision-making, power, and profit sharing. Okay. So when we talk about cooperatives, what types of businesses would be ideal for cooperatives?
So I think any kind of business can be a worker cooperative. At Center for Community Wealth, we're really focused on what kind of businesses lead to a living wage and what kind of businesses can really thrive in our economy right now.
Right. Can you think about the ideal business models or the business services that could also contribute to a healthier cooperative ecosystem?
For us, I really believe any business can benefit from employee ownership and from cooperatives specifically. It's if you take all the best practices in running a business, it's just like now you have a structure for it. And so when we look at businesses long-term that thrive under cooperatives, they are ones that, as Joel mentioned, they're financially healthy. We look for that. And there's a willingness to participate, a trust, like I like my coworkers, because you're owning a business together and making decisions. So I think any business, any industry can become a cooperative or start as a cooperative.
Yeah. So I selfishly asked because I had the honor of working with so many cooperatives when I worked in Nicaragua, and I saw that what was most successful is when people had agency over their own job, when they felt like they had really ownership of the job. And so we got to see in some spaces, I got to work with a composting cooperative. And when it became a cooperative, they all of a sudden start to figure out how to get creative with the equipment because they couldn't find the pieces to repair the equipment. And so they figure out how to actually get creative and come up with the ways to address the issues that that machine was having. And in other spaces, that wasn't the worker, right? It was like, well, that didn't work. Let me know if it gets fixed tomorrow. And so do you see that in some of the cooperatives that we work here in the U.S.?
Absolutely. I think as soon as you realize your voice can be heard and you can make a difference, people were naturally curious and creative, and it brings out the best in us to know that your ideas have a place and then you can iterate off of them. So even in businesses that are not cooperatives, we talk a lot about innovation and what are these factors that help with that. In a cooperative, we're all responsible for the success, and I think just that is a supercharge for creativity and how to solve it.
Yeah, we're all responsible for the success of the business. Imagine if we all had that mentality in every space of our lives. So when we think about the work of cooperatives, what is the service that Center for Community Wealth offers for people who might be interested in even considering a cooperative?
So right now we're actually going through Worker-Owned Cooperative Academy with 4 different groups. And we've broken it into 2 different phases. So a team of 3 to 5 people will come to us and say, we want to start a worker cooperative. So the first phase is deciding, is their business idea viable? Can it work? And then how does their team members work together? Once they're through that phase, then we really start designing the cooperative with them, deciding what their membership manuals are, how is their business going to work, and really setting up the business with them so it can really thrive.
Mm-hmm. And who gets to decide that?
Not us. That's the best part, is when we're working with a worker cooperative team, a lot of times they'll look to us as staff to be the experts or answer the question. And the real fun of the work is turning to them and saying, we don't decide, it's actually you all that get to make these decisions. And it's not really up to us as staff, but really giving them the power to make the decisions that they feel like are best for their business.
Or reminding them that they already have the power to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that gets back to that. We're all responsible. It's a shift in thinking when you're starting a business with other people, that it's not a place where you're like, oh, I'll just step back and let somebody else decide. This is something you own, and you co-own it as well. And so really just reminding people of the power that they have and that their voice matters in building the business. It's transformational to watch.
Yeah, it really is. And for people to all of a sudden know that they have a say in the process and that their voice matters is really critical in creating something that's going to be long lasting. Yeah. So how about for cooperatives that already exist in the co-op ecosystem? What support does the Center for Community Wealth provide?
Yeah, that's a space, there's a lot of emphasis, I think, in starting a business, but how do you keep a business thriving? And also as new members and new owners entering the business, it's like there's always a need to keep learning. So at Center for Community Wealth, we help with technical assistance, which looks like one-on-one or group coaching, trainings, and leadership retreats. We do back office support systems, so it's helping businesses that are in that kind of 1 to 5 year range really get access to support that they need. That could be bookkeeping, tax accounting, marketing. And that helps supercharge their business so that they really start bringing in money and then can decide if they want to do that in-house or they want to continue to get support. And lastly, we coordinate a peer network. And so all of the cooperatives in Colorado come together 6 times a year to do shared learning, support each other, and usually tackle some issue that's common to all of them and kind of learn together on how to implement a solution in their co-op, in their specific industry.
Great. So tell me a little bit more about the peer network. It seems fascinating that cooperatives, businesses coming together to tackle an issue. Where does that come from?
I think there's a long history of cooperatives supporting cooperatives. It's actually one of the principles of cooperation.
My favorite.
And it sounds strange at first, right? Like we're used to associations or, networking. But in this case, we're really saying we are stronger together. We have a competitive advantage that leads to more sales. And ultimately more wealth for everybody. And so these coming together is incredibly important to both reminding people, like we're cooperating every day. How can we cooperate with each other for financial gain? And just that support. In the United States, the worker cooperative movement is growing 30% year over year for the last 5 years, which is huge. But we're still small. When you say, I work at a cooperative, I'm an owner at a cooperative, people will say, what's that? And so these spaces of people coming together and just recognizing that we are all doing this are incredibly important.
Yeah, especially right now when the rhetoric is the more division, the more separation that exists, the better we will be when we know that that's not necessarily the case, right? Now, tell me a little bit more about the back office support services, because I think this is a very unique aspect, especially when we have the opportunity to help start businesses, but not always to continue the support. So tell me a little bit more about back office support and where did the idea come from and what is the vision for it?
Yeah, I think most people, when they start a business, their business idea is not, I want to do bookkeeping, or I want to do marketing, or I want to do taxes. A lot of our cooperative teams come up with an idea. Like, we want to be a cleaner in the community and offer excellent services. We want to do coaching for nonprofits. And so when they start that business idea, they realize there's all this other back office work that needs to be done that is really important for their business to succeed. And so with the back office boost, it's really about how can we offer bookkeeping services to startup cooperatives? How can we help with marketing? How can we help set up their website? And taking those tasks off of the plate of a small business owner is really important because it takes a lot of work. And so I think this is something that can really make Center for Community Wealth unique, is that support of those services. And that really frees up a lot of time for our cooperatives to really hone the craft, the reason they wanted to start the cooperative in the first place. And so we believe it can really build more wealth for those cooperative members.
Yeah. And it's always surprising to see that we expect businesses, local businesses, micro businesses, to do it all themselves. We want to teach them how to do QuickBooks. We want to teach them everything. They just don't have the capacity, right? Mm-hmm. And so this is about adding additional capacity so they can focus on what they do best. Mm-hmm. And so if we can help them do that, then that can help the business be more successful because they focus on what they do best. Mm-hmm. I was always fascinated. I'm like, would we ever expect people to do that, large corporations to do that? And we don't, right? They outsource wherever they can, and they focus on what they do best. And so I love that that is now the focus, to figure out how we help people focus on their strengths. Great. So now tell me a little bit more about established businesses. We know that in Colorado, the retiring population continues to grow, and we have a significant opportunity to keep the legacy of those businesses in communities. How does that relate to employee ownership?
Oh my gosh, I think about this all the time. I think it completely relates. I talk to business owners every day, and when I say, like, what's your plan? Like, when you exit, what's going to happen? And they'll say, I'll sell my business. And in reality, 20% of small businesses sell. And that number might actually be lower. There's not a ton of data on it. And so that tells me this is not a good backup plan. Also, a lot of times when owners exit, there's a lot of grief that comes with that, because they think, I've built this business, what will happen to it? And so entering in a worker cooperative conversion where all of the workers get to buy the business, so that's rewarding long-term employees, while giving a fair value to the owner, also opens up this space where the owner knows that the business is in good hands, and the clients, the customers, the community that has been served by this business for the last 20, 30, 50 years is going to stay intact, because the workers have the same goals. They've been working towards that, and they know how to do it. And in a time when we're seeing wealth transfer, where will, baby boomers are exiting, this is probably the single most important moment for wealth transfer, is how do we make sure that the people who have been putting in the work, been laboring, are going to see the reward for that. And I think employee ownership and worker cooperatives specifically have a huge role to play in that.
Great. So what is the support that Center for Community Wealth provides?
Yes, we are here at every point. So we help business owners when they're just like, I heard about this, or I'm not sure what to do. And we talk about what their goals are as the owner, what they'd like for their business, for their employees, and then go over the different types, like what is the best fit. In Colorado, we have 4 different types of employee ownership. So going over which one matches. And when it's a worker co-op, we are here for the entire process. From there, we look at, is this feasible financially, culturally, and legally? Some industries just take a little bit more work to get there, and so we want to make sure that it's compatible. We look at all the financials so that we can show the workers, like, this is a good investment. This is something, it's not the owner wants to leave this business. Here's the price. But it's really working together to find out where the price that will meet everybody's needs and how to do that. And then we project manage all the way through. We kind of navigate to the right service providers and help step by step get to the transition to the workers owning it. And then we're here post-conversion. So that's a huge part. To me, that's where it begins, is how do you embed that culture? How do you get that, I'm an owner. That's not something you can just give to somebody, like, okay, you're an owner. It's that shift, like, how I am now responsible. What does that mean? And finding your way there. So we support discovery all through the process and then afterwards.
Post-transaction. Great. And it's so important because for our communities that have not necessarily had the opportunity to be owners, and then all of a sudden there's the opportunity in front of them, I can imagine that it might be scary for them to jump in. Yes. There is risk associated with any business. And so could that be, do you see that as a barrier sometimes?
Shockingly, it is. When we started doing this work, I never thought the workers would be the ones like, I'm not sure about this. But in reality, and that's why the feasibility part is so important in the education, is we can say, this is how much the business makes. This is the cushion. This is how it'll look. And really doing that education early on, because we're starting with people who maybe have never read a financial report, who really don't know how the business is operating. And then we're giving them the tools and co-creating those tools, what's the right ones for them to understand how their role impacts the business. And when we do the education, they're more likely to go, like, okay, yes, I will become an owner, I will buy this. But sometimes just in the beginning, do you want this business? Like, no. So yeah, it's a process.
Yeah. Sometimes I've heard, this sounds too good to be true, so it must not be
yes.
real.
Yes.
Addressing some of the fears, the concerns, and really some of the gaps, I think, is going to be critical.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so too, especially with the kind of businesses that are the everyday businesses, that people from every level of the organization are invited into ownership. Sometimes there is that reaction, this is too good to be true, because people have systematically experienced oppression, being tricked, robbed, all of these things. And now somebody's asking, do you want to make this huge purchase? I'm getting nerdy about this because I think about this a lot.
This is what we think about all the time, right? And this is what it takes to truly create an economy that works for all. Yes. We are looking at a time where we have the opportunity to actually build something that works for the majority of the population. And so we know that our economy stands on the shoulders of workers, and yet the profits continue to go to those who are not even in our communities. It continues to go to the shareholders that make the decisions based on somewhere outside of our reality, when we are the ones actually making it work. So yes, I'm also very passionate about employee ownership, and I truly believe that employee ownership is one of the tools that we need to continue to expand as much as possible. Yes. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, here in Colorado, some are now starting to say we're the Delaware for cooperatives. So how does Colorado compare to other states in the support we provide co-ops?
Yeah, so on the legislative front and tax incentive front, we're leading the pack. So we're the Delaware of cooperative law because we have the best cooperative statutes. Here you can actually become a limited cooperative association. It's very easy to do. So on that front, we are excelling. We have a lot of support on the state level from the governor. We have a governor-appointed commission. On the cultural side, I think we're still somewhat challenged in that we're Colorado. We're on the border of the West, and there is a sense, I think, ingrained, in that we are independent. We do it ourselves, and that mentality, I think, is a barrier to cooperatives, which is why the peer network and doing business development as a cohort is so important to normalize, because I think we like to believe that we are doing it all by ourselves, and that's just not the reality.
And I think what we're really looking at now is a lot of the co-ops we support are for the owners like a side gig. It's not their main job. And so looking at how can we support cooperatives that lead to a full-time living wage. Like right now in Colorado, there's a meat packing plant where people are striking. What if that company was worker owned? And there's other countries that make big moves like that. And so trying to really think strategically about how we support businesses and workers, especially in transitioning their business that's taking advantage of them to a scenario where they actually own the company. And that's really where you make the biggest move in changing the economy in a place like Colorado from corporations being in control to workers being in control. So trying to figure out strategically how we make moves like that.
Yeah. So how do you think we can increase exposure of cooperatives?
I think it's telling stories, finding examples in Colorado, not somewhere else, where workers really took the lead, formed a cooperative, and were successful. So making it a reality for folks that it's something that's very much possible for them, not for somebody else, but they can actually do it. So they have what it takes to become part of a cooperative and build that wealth for themselves and their families.
Yeah. I mean, so much education, right? Because I think, as you both mentioned, shared prosperity has not been the American dream, or at least the dream that we've been sold. It is your own everything and you do everything yourself, when we know in reality that is not how we operate. We rely on each other. We rely on the safety net systems. We rely on shared roads. We rely on so much infrastructure that has been set so that we can continue to do what we do best. And yet it's counterculture in some ways. And so it's going to take a lot of education, a lot of awareness, increasing awareness to make sure that people know. How do you think people can learn more about cooperatives, or how do people support cooperatives?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, if you want to learn more about cooperatives, the Center for Community Wealth, it's an email or a call or an introduction away. We start with Cooperative 101 on all front, always. And we also do a lot of events that are kind of what we think of as ecosystem-wide. So if you're curious about this, come, learn with us. That's one way. Do you want to talk about how to support cooperatives?
Yeah, I think another important thing for folks, especially now with what's going on in our country, folks are wondering, how do we support immigrants? At Center for Community Wealth, there's a number of immigrant-led worker cooperatives that are part of our network. And on the Center for Community Wealth website, there's a shop co-op page, and you can go on there and get certain jobs done by these cooperatives. And I think that's an important part of building up this ecosystem, instead of supporting corporations, to really look and research what are the worker cooperatives working in your neighborhood and how can you receive services from them.
Yeah. And the services you can get are from everything from house cleaning to, we have a cooperative, media cooperative, to maternal wellness. And so there are no industries that are excluded from worker cooperatives.
Great. So it sounds like I heard educate, learn more about cooperatives, talk to your neighbors about cooperatives, consider converting your business to a cooperative,
yes,
and shop cooperatives. Those are some very tangible ways in which we can support, so we can continue to see cooperatives grow in Colorado and hopefully become that place that is full of Colorado cooperatives. I'm going to ask one provocative question before we end. Are cooperatives easy to develop?
I would say they're interesting to develop. I think anytime you have multiple people working on starting a business, it's interesting. It's much easier for one person, solo entrepreneur, to start their own business because they make all the decisions. But that wealth is just kept with that one person. And so with a worker cooperative, 3 to 6 people working on developing an idea and then making it happen is interesting. So there's hard work starting any small business, but the beauty is with a cooperative is you have a lot of great life experiences and knowledge in your group that you're not doing it alone. You have other people around you with a shared goal, and you get to work together with them on making it a reality.
So perhaps what I heard is not the easiest, but definitely worth doing. So Joel, Michaela, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. Just absolutely love learning about cooperatives, and we're going to be hearing more. And for those of you tuning in today, thank you for being here today. For more information on Center for Community Wealth, please visit our website, communitywealth.org, or find us on social media, CCW Denver on Instagram and Facebook, and CWB on LinkedIn. Thank you.